When I first entered the convent, all I wanted to do was to be a good teacher. Every teacher I knew was a nun, so I figured I had to be a nun to become a teacher. But 20 years of teaching, and it got to a point where I was with several other sisters, and we were asked to leave the convent that we were in because the pastor wanted to use it for something else. I walked around the streets of Bushwick looking for a place to live, a place where I could be. And with Sister Peggy Merritt, the two of us found an apartment on Cornelia Street. And from there, we got involved with the Block Association. And all of my work working with young people during my teaching position, we also had a lot of after-school programs, weekend programs, etc. And a lesson that I learned from Sister Ellen Zizabin when I first started teaching was, you look at a person and what do you see? You can see what's just facing you, or you can see what's a little bit deeper, the look in their eye especially. And the other thing was, her second piece of advice to me was always, you don't just get to know the child, but you get to know where the child comes from, the environment, their family, etc. So that was in me. As we were on Cornelia Street, we also wound up with a young girl that I had known since she was born. She was in foster care with her family, and that particular family, there was abuse. The child was placed back in with the child care program that had her in foster care. From there, they asked me, and I became a foster parent and had this girl. And she was with me then, and to this day, she's beautiful, she's fine, she's set in a good situation. I'm on Cornelia Street. Sister Peggy Merritt was with me. She was with me the first 10 years that we were there. And we got to know the people, we got to work with the teens, etc. And started to realize that so many of the young people had situations that were just not feasible for them to remain at home. I think of one young woman who came to me. She was a senior in Bushwick High School. It was her boyfriend who actually brought her to me. And he said he heard through the neighborhood that I could help giving girls a place to live. And her parents were moving to Puerto Rico. She wanted to stay in high school, graduate, and get on with her life. So she was with me for a year. And it was situations similar to that, not necessarily drug addicted, not necessarily street people, but young people who had situations that just needed help. Sister Peggy, as I said, was with me, and she said she couldn't really give much help except to be there as an adult support. And one thing to another, she wound up being a force behind things, because I would be strict with young women who were with me and tell them they had to have a job and they had to go to school at the same time, finish, go on to college, do what needed to be done, but they had to be able also to support themselves. They paid $42 a week for room and board. It included everything, food, the whole bit. And they would sit with Peggy and she would work out their little budget for them. They would pay their $42, and whatever they had left, they had to save 75% of it. Peggy would sit with them and they would try to figure out if they could come up with 50 cents left over so they could buy a soda on their way to work or something like that. The girls stayed with us. We had no government funding. The girls stayed with us. As I said, they paid $42 a week room and board. And then whenever they were ready, they moved out. Because we did not have government funding, it wasn't a situation that they could only stay for 3 months or 6 months. And that was the beautiful part of it. Some were with us for a couple of months, and some were with us for a couple of years. I think of one particular family, Lisette Ramos. Lisette was brought to me by most of our referrals were from word of mouth or from Covenant House. And Lizette was brought to me by a paraprofessional who was working in a local school. Turns out that she was actually living in the streets because of a terrible situation at home. From the day she came to us, she came to me, and she was also placed in foster care, and they referred her also to me. That particular girl, at the age of 13, was in a public school, but at the same time, once she finished that and she graduated or left there, I was able to talk with the sisters from Dominican Commercial. The sisters there accepted her into the school tuition free. Beautiful, wonderful support service. And Lizette graduated from Dominican Commercial with a full diploma. She went on to Long Island University, got her bachelor's degree. And today she's a secretary in a Pentecostal school that goes from grades K to 12. Lizette today is married. She stayed with me up until the time that she got married. She's married. She has 4 children. 2 of those children have already graduated from college. The 3rd one is in college at this point in Pennsylvania. And the 4th one is still at home in high school. Beautiful, wonderful person, totally involved in her church, her Pentecostal church that she belongs to. It's beautiful and wonderful service. The cycle has been broken. Lizette came to me from the streets. What would have happened with her children? Instead of that, her children are now going on to be productive members of society. And I always use the formula, as we break the cycle with one young woman, that particular woman, however many children she has, in their lifetime, if they each have 3, we go on to a point where for every one girl, we've saved the lives and changed the lives of hundreds. So I think that's one of the most beautiful parts about the program. And because we didn't have government funding, it was good and bad. It was good because we didn't have to say, oh, you've been here 3 months, you have to leave. At the same time, we didn't have, we weren't able to necessarily grow. I guess grow is the proper word to use at this point. So that's the particular girl that I just mentioned to you is a sample of so many who came through, different ones who came, stayed, finished school, finished college, and then went into the Army. The last time I saw her, I put her on in a cab to go to Fort Hamilton to join the Army at 5 o'clock in the morning. And she fulfilled her service, went back home. That was back in the 80s. And to this day, I still receive Mother's Day and Christmas cards from her, "Dear Mom." All I did was give her a place to be so she could do what she wanted to do. And that sort of thing is what triggers young people coming out to visit me in family groups at this point. And the joke of the whole thing is so many of them calling me Grandma. So we're looking forward to the day when I'm upstairs and not functioning too well, and people are coming saying they want to see their grandma, and I can't explain myself. So this is my way of explaining. Yes, I'm definitely grandma to many. The program that we had, the name that was given to it, and it wasn't even my choice, which is, I also think is interesting for so many of my thoughts, but sitting around the table one night trying to come up with a name, and the board of directors came up with TOPS, TOPS for You. And TOPS is T-O-P-S, time, opportunity, peace, and service. And the joy of that is that we gave a girl the time. She could stay as long as she wanted. We gave her the opportunity. It was something that she might not have had in the past. In a sense of peace, the house was run like a family. As I said, Peggy Merritt was with us the first 10 years, and then after that it was basically myself and the girls. And we just ran it like a family. There were 10 to 12 girls at any given time. And dinner. The girls helped to cook if they were home. The top priority was school and work. If they still had time and they were available and they wanted to cook, they could. Otherwise, yours truly did all of that kind of thing. From the beginning, we became incorporated. Actually, when we first started out, it was under Independence House. Independence House was a program in Manhattan that ran a shelter for men. And it turned out that the person who ran the shelter was connected to the person who owned the building on Cornelia Street that we were in. And it was talking to him whenever he would come every month to pick up the rent that he put me in touch with the person from Independence House. So the first 5 years, we were sort of under the guidance of Independence House, which amounted to one thing. They had us pay $300 a month for use of the building, which was today probably worth maybe $10,000, I don't know, $5,000. And every time he came, we would talk, and it turned out that they were thinking to open a residence for girls. So we started out that way, and then within 5 years, by 1991, we were incorporated, and it was the board that came up with the name, and we were totally, fully incorporated and on our own. And all we did during those first 5 years was pay the $300 a month. Everything else was on us, whether it was finding furniture, painting the building, repairs, everything and anything was on our responsibility. Yeah, it was in that same building. The building was a corner building in Bushwick. In its day, it was a bar and grill. And a little aside on that is that my father did commercial refrigeration. My father actually was the person who had responsibility for the beer coolers in the bar. And he did all of that work. And he used to tell me, he might not use it, but he used to tell me that the owner would be turning over in his grave if he saw what I did to his building. Is that, again, seeing situations, seeing the situation of a young girl means that she was able to come to us and we were able to break that cycle. Working with families, etc., we also became aware so many women sitting home watching the novellas, watching the soap operas in their house and collecting welfare. Or could we recruit them, train them, motivate them, and get them to become family daycare providers? And so that we trained them in childcare, etc., and helped them to form their own businesses. At the time that I retired, when I came out, we had over 100 family daycare homes in the community, which the joy of it was walking around the neighborhood and seeing all the women with their little uniforms, because they picked up that habit from us that they could wear the little smocks. That kind of identified them and put a little dignity on their program, etc. Since I've retired, my suspicion is there might be 30 or 40 of those homes still active.